Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. 1 year later, after Norfolk Southern, the multi-billion-dollar railroad company, nuked East Palestine, Ohio, and the surrounding areas with cancerous chemicals, President Biden is now deciding to grace East Palestine with his presence. But before we get to President Biden now visiting East Palestine, I want to remind you, Status Coup and Louis DeAngelis will be on the ground for the fifth time in the year since this derailment. Starting tonight, Louis DeAngelis will be back on the ground in East Palestine, reporting for several days as we hit the 1 year anniversary mark of this derailment and detonation. As always, it does take a lot of resources and cost a lot of money to keep sending reporters and a cameraman back there. Flights, hotel, rent a car, food. We don't have any corporate fat cats funding us. No Koch brothers or the remaining Koch brother or the Democratic Republican Party bigwig donors. Our funding comes from you. If you could support us, please go to statuscoup.com/trip funding. It's in the description, and chip in any amount to help offset the cost of this trip. Of course, you could also become a Status Coup member at statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. So Biden is showing up in East Palestine. It was reported today. We don't know exactly when, but sometime this month, Biden to visit East Palestine, Ohio, train derailment site. President Biden will travel next month. Next month is tomorrow, to East Palestine, Ohio, to mark the 1 year anniversary of the disastrous train derailment. The White House did not provide a specific date for the visit, which would fulfill a long-held view to visit the small eastern Ohio town. You know what? You might, the neoliberal Biden stands might hit me for this, but I can't even really give him credit for this. He should have been there almost immediately. I have talked to experts, and Lewis has talked to experts that have described this as a mini Chernobyl in America. Biden and his EPA have covered it up and helped the railroad company cover it up, which I'm about to show you. There should be railroad executives from Norfolk Southern in prison because they intentionally and unnecessarily detonated cancerous chemicals over this city. And the media has abandoned the story for the most part, other than Status Coup, and to their credit, News Nation, a small cable news outlet, has stayed on it. I'm going to show you this clip because many of you might not have seen this. It's a bit long, but I know in this short attention span era we live in, people don't have a lot of attention. But I want to show you this full clip because this should be a scandal. And frankly, in other countries, if the owner of the chemical company that the chemicals were in the car that they detonated, if the owner of the chemical company had testified at a hearing months ago that they repeatedly told Norfolk Southern they did not have to detonate those train cars, there'd be criminal investigations and probably trials and convictions. In America, the Attorney General of Ohio, as far as we know, not looking into it. The Department of Justice, not looking into this. This is the CEO of the chemical car company that they detonated, Norfolk Southern, with cancerous vinyl chloride. This is what he had to say about the days leading up to that explosion.
Many of these rail cars breached upon derailing, which released their contents into the environment and fueled the initial fires at the derailment scene. The 5 tank cars carrying oxyvinyl's product derailed without breaching. The pressure relief devices on all 5 cars operated as intended, preventing damage to the tanks by relieving the elevated pressures that were caused by the surrounding fires. On Saturday morning, February 4th, Oxyvinyls was notified of the train derailment that involved tank cars carrying our VCM product. Following the notification, Oxyvinyls activated its Special Situations team in Dallas. We sent a technical team to East Palestine, and we communicated with Norfolk Southern and its contractors regarding the properties of stabilized VCM. To my knowledge, no other shippers responded with this level of support. On Saturday evening, February 4th, representatives of Oxyvinyl spoke directly with representatives of Norfolk Southern and its emergency response contractors regarding conditions at the derailment site. We made it clear, based on our expertise of the chemical properties of our product, that stabilized VCM would be unlikely to spontaneously polymerize under the conditions described to us by Norfolk Southern and its contractor. Polymerization of VCM is a very exothermic reaction, which generates significant heat, resulting in increased pressure within its container. If that pressure is not relieved, it can cause a failure of the container. An uncontrolled VCM polymerization reaction would have an obvious temperature rise that would continue through the duration of the exothermic reaction. For this reason, we emphasize with Norfolk Southern and its contractors the importance of monitoring the temperature of the rail cars. And on Sunday morning, February 5th, we further reinforced our view that polymerization was not occurring during a call with Norfolk Southern representatives. As previously mentioned, Oxyvinyls had dispatched a 3-person team to Ohio in order to make certain that we had representatives on the ground who could serve as a resource to Norfolk Southern and those managing the response effort. My colleague on the panel, Steve Smith, led that team, and he arrived in East Palestine on the afternoon of Sunday, February the 5th. On Sunday evening, Steve met with Norfolk Southern's emergency response contractors and, for the third time, stated Oxyvinyl's view that polymerization of VCM was not occurring. In summary, although our rail cars did not initiate the derailment and did not breach in the derailment, we provided technical support to Norfolk Southern and its emergency response contract.
Okay, folks, in English, if you failed science, I got a C- in chemistry. Don't even get me started on physics. That is the owner of the chemical cars. There were 5 cars of vinyl chloride. Vinyl chloride is a highly cancerous, toxic chemical. 5 cars that Norfolk Southern exploded intentionally, detonated intentionally, because they claimed that there was a risk of an imminent explosion, an imminent uncontrolled explosion. Okay? 3 times in that hearing, the owner of the chemical car company says, I wrote it down. Number 1, we made it clear that stabilized VCM would be unlikely to polymerize, which basically means heat up, pressurize to the point that it explodes and detonates. Number 2, a second time, they told the owner of the chemical car company, we further reinforced our view that polymerization was not happening. Third time, Sunday evening. So Sunday evening was the night before Norfolk Southern did the controlled burn, which was not a controlled burn. It was an uncontrolled chemical detonation. Third time, night before. Sunday evening for the third time, we said that polymerization of the VCM was not occurring. Ding, 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 ding. 3 times. 3 times. The experts, the owner of the chemical car company, told Norfolk Southern there is no risk of an imminent explosion. And what did Norfolk Southern do? They nuked this town. They probably figured, flyover country, who gives a shit? And they, in a reckless way, detonated highly cancerous, highly toxic chemicals over East Palestine, the surrounding communities in Ohio. That plume went east to Pennsylvania. It went north to other places. And the media has not even covered it. He's under oath testifying that they didn't need to do this, and we told them they didn't need to do this. Why is this not on the front page of newspapers? Why is this not in criminal court? Why is the Attorney General of Ohio not investigating? Why is the Attorney General of Pennsylvania not investigating? Why is the Department of Justice not investigating? Where are the... Am I in the Twilight Zone? The real reason that they did this was not because of an uncontrolled explosion that could have happened, risking murder and death to the residents of East Palestine. The real reason that they did this was because the Norfolk Southern executives did not want to see the rail track closed for several days, if not possibly a week or two, because it would have had to been closed. It would have had to be closed to slowly extract the chemicals from the train car, which would have been the responsible thing to do, and is what I've been told, and Lewis has been told by people who work in this industry, including firefighters and volatile gas experts, should have been done. Why? Because if they would have shut down the rail track for a couple more days, even a week, they're losing $1 million a day. $1 million a day. So losing $1 million a day was worth nuking this town and causing a lifetime of debilitating health issues, cancers, and deaths. And let me just show you just one instance from Lewis's reporting. Again, he's been there 5 times. This is Lewis in his last trip to East Palestine.
What sort of symptoms were you experiencing throughout this?
Well, I don't know if Norfolk Southern had anything to do with it, but I got breast cancer. I lived in that house for 25 years. Now, the research that I did, vinyl chloride, extended exposure to that will expedite the cancer. So, I don't know.
Right.
After that, I've had, besides going through all that,
Right.
I've had, dry mouth, eyes are irritated, sinus problems, headaches, nauseated. Rashes, yeah. I'm still sporting a few right now, and it's just been a living hell.
A living hell. Now, not a doctor, can't say definitively, but it's pretty rare for men to get breast cancer. It happens, not a lot. And vinyl chloride is cancerous. This man lived in the same house 25 years, suddenly gets breast cancer. Lewis and I have spoken with residents. I just spoke with a resident yesterday. She's a young mother. I think her kid is 9, who a few months ago was urinating blood. We've talked to residents whose kids still have nosebleeds in and out of school. We've talked to residents with debilitating fatigue, brain fog, cognitive issues, respiratory issues. We're talking to residents who have left the town temporarily, staying with family elsewhere, this or that. And when they come back to the town, they instantly feel sick. We're talking to residents who are not living at their home still a year later, who when they return to their home, they say it smells like a diesel station. Yet the EPA, Biden's EPA, remember it was Obama's EPA in Flint. This is Biden's EPA in East Palestine. Biden's EPA says nothing to see here. We've tested everything. It's fine. Don't worry about your eyes burning. Don't worry if you're still getting rashes, because residents are still getting rashes. And Lewis is going to be speaking with those residents on the ground starting today, because we don't abandon these stories. And by the way, we don't make money off of continuing to go back to Flint, continuing to go back to East Palestine. We lose money on these trips because YouTube's algorithm does not feed these kind of stories to YouTube users. In fact, it suppresses these kinds of stories. So we don't get a lot of views. We don't get a profit at all. We're lucky if we break even on these trips, which is why I always have to tell you, please, if you can, support us. For this trip specifically, it's statuscoup.com/trip funding. In general, support us as a member. That is our top preference and request to you. Sign up at statuscoup.com/join for $5 to $10 a month. That's all we ask. But I also want to show you just a short montage of Lewis's other reporting. It shows you what these people have gone through and are continuing to go through.
Well, Sunday they came knocking on our doors saying that we had to evacuate or they're coming back with body bags.
The water was basically up to where I'm standing right now on this side, but more importantly, up to the edge and into the parking lot of the Roadhouse restaurant over there.
Do you want to talk about how that process is first, and then we'll get into...
It's fucked up.
Yeah.
Extremely.
We were getting headaches instantly, sick to our stomachs, sore throats, just everything, hard to breathe.
There's a lot of days where I don't even spend at home anymore.
How long is it going to take? Are one of my children going to have to drop dead before they get guidance?
It's ridiculous.
That's one good thing about our area, the entire area, everyone around here, all the nonprofits, they all come together, they're all helping us. But who else?
Yeah. It's tough, and I mean, it's unfortunate.
And he looked at me and he said, with a Southern accent, "Ma'am, this is my job." He says, "This is what we do. We're gonna clean up this mess and we're gonna move on to the next one. There'll be another one tomorrow." And he said it so nonchalantly and uncaring, and like it didn't matter, and that it's gonna happen again. It absolutely terrified me. I went back to my hotel room and I sat on the floor and I cried. I just cried.
To be clear, this is not like something that was a couple months ago, but it's all better now. The residents are still suffering health issues, financial issues. There's residents Lewis and I have spoken with that desperately want to permanently relocate, but Norfolk Southern will not pay for their permanent relocation. Meanwhile, media, like they did in Flint, are putting out puff pieces, probably fed to them by Norfolk Southern and the EPA, about how wonderful Norfolk Southern and EPA, how their cleanup and recovery has been in East Palestine. This is what's really going on. These residents are sick. They do not have universal health care for a chemical bomb being nuked over them. And to be clear, it's not just East Palestine residents. It's residents in other areas that were affected in Ohio and Pennsylvania. So I don't want to only focus on the East Palestine residents, although they're the most affected. That's why we are staying on this story. How can you have a mini Chernobyl in America and the media just abandons it? The politicians just abandon it. Why? Because the political horse race is sexier and gets you more ratings? Or, oh, news consumers, they don't want to see that. It's too depressing. Well, I believe they do. We're going to stay on this and stay tuned for Lewis's on-the-ground reporting from East Palestine.